As I have mentioned in my previous correspondences, all is well on the Verdier estate thanks to your grace. I hope the business that had called you away will soon be settled. I shall write again should anything noteworthy arise. Sincerely, Chloe Verdier. Duke Damien sat in his castle, reading the letter. Chloe Verdier? Does she not intend to take my name? He muttered, holding the letter in his hand. His eyes then shifted to a published story from the Red Veil. Was even marriage unable to extinguish Duke Theseus' fiery passion? The newly wedded Duke has been seen rallying with Marchioness Isabella, he read aloud, his lips curling into a smirk. She must have seen this, yet she made no mention of it. How did it make you feel? Chloe? Did you shed tears of shame? No, you probably held them back as always, unaware that is precisely what aggravates me most. He flipped through the paper again and continued reading. Duke Theseus' secret love affair during what should be his honeymoon has strengthened the position of Prince Johannes, the heir to the royal throne. Meanwhile, rumors of the king's degrading condition continue to circulate. They have reported exactly what I told them to, Damien said with scornful eyes as he tapped his fingers on the table. His thoughts drifted back to Chloe. He remembered her words, that she believed he wanted power, and that she would do her very best to assist him in all his endeavors. As if you could do anything, he scoffed. Whenever I think of her, I get the sudden urge to seize something. She grated on my nerves from the very moment I saw her. It irked me to see her among the wounded, tending to them when she could easily be mistaken for one of them herself. And that strange feeling I kept getting every time I saw her like that, it left a sour taste in my mouth. He paused, opened a drawer, and took out a pair of gloves Chloe had gifted him. Examining them closely, he whispered, "Perhaps next time I should lock her in a room and make her sew all day. And when she runs out of cloth, I will have her embroider my body." Soon after, Duke Damien went to the palace. He sat beside the king, who lay ill in bed, coughing weakly. "It shall not be long before the Lord calls me home. I trust you will serve Johannes well even after I am gone," the king said with effort. "I am sure you are aware he is not of sound mind," the king continued with a sigh. "Swear before God that you will be loyal to Johannes." Damien's eyes narrowed. "I will, if he is a king worthy of my loyalty." The king coughed sharply. What? What did you say? It is the duty of a subject to serve his king, Damien." Damien leaned forward, his voice low. "Then it is only too clear what the future holds for this country. It is ruled by someone who has gone mad, without anyone noticing. I know, I take that back. I know of his madness, as do you, and all those who died at his hand." The king's eyes widened. Damien continued. "There are countless rumors of bodies being pulled from his room one after the other. It will not be long before the people realize those words were never rumors at all. Your Majesty, I risked my life on the battlefield for the sake of this kingdom. I will always be ready to fight for my country. Is it not only right that the throne goes to a man who is worthy of it?" His eyes glinted darkly, unsettling the king. "What do you dare imply before me?" the king muttered angrily, coughing harder. "Johannes's madness may be a secret for now, but you cannot cover the sky with the palm of your hand," Damien said as he rose from his seat. The king's voice trembled. Since when have you harbored such self-serving ambitions?" "Since when?" Damien repeated, his back turned before slowly looking over his shoulder with a smirk. "Since the day I was born." Meanwhile, at the Verdier estate, Chloe sat in her study, flipping through a book. Her thoughts lingered on the article she had read in the Red Veil. Duke Theseus and Marchioness Isabella. Perhaps I should have taken a closer look, she thought, recalling the image of the Duke with the lady. Her hand trembled before she slammed the book shut in frustration. "No, forget it, Chloe. Of what importance is it to me?" she muttered inwardly, though her heart betrayed a hint of jealousy. Just then, her father, Viscount Verdier, entered the room with a letter in hand. "Chloe, my dear, you have received a letter from His Grace," he said with a smile, holding it out to her. It seems he too was troubled by that scandalous piece. Chloe flinched at his words, watching him silently before reaching out to take the letter. "He has not written to me once since leaving for the capital," she thought as she unfolded it and began to read. "To my beloved wife, Chloe von Thys. Wait for me at the Thys estate while performing your duties as Duchess there. I hope you have been looking forward to our meeting as impatiently as I have. Your husband, Damien Ernst von Thissed. Chloe's hands tightened around the letter, her expression tense as she read his words. Chloe soon prepared herself to set out for the Thissy estate at the Duke's command. At the Verdier estate, her father, Viscount Verdier, spoke to Gilles before their departure. Gilles, I trust that you will safely accompany my daughter to the Thys estate, he said seriously. You need not worry, my lord, Gilles replied, assuring him. Chloe turned to her father and added gently, He is right, father. I am no longer the small child I once was. Viscount Verdier reached for her hand, his expression softening as she leaned on her walking cane. My dear, you and Alice will always be little girls to me, he said, his voice laced with sadness. Chloe tried to lighten the moment, smiling faintly. If I had to guess, you will still see me as that child even when I am an old woman. You are probably right, the Viscount admitted. I know you are now the honorable wife of a duke, and that you should have left my side long ago, but... He trailed off, emotions holding back his words. Before he could say more, Chloe hugged him tightly, silencing him. Father, she whispered, pressing her face against his chest. Yes, my child, he answered softly. Inwardly, Chloe wished she could remain at the estate with him forever. But she steadied her voice and said, I will be all right. You have seen for yourself how much the Duke cherishes me. Reluctantly, she released her embrace, but their hands still held on to one another. Father, I do not wish to go to the Thys estate, she thought silently to herself. Out loud, she reassured him again, I will be fine, really. Nearby, Gilles observed the exchange quietly, still holding Chloe's suitcase. So please, Chloe said to her father with a warm smile, send me off with a smile. The train soon arrived, its wheels moving steadily along the tracks, releasing faint jets of steam as it rattled gently forward. Inside their cabin, Chloe and Jill sat facing each other. Gilles looked around and remarked, I would have been perfectly all right riding in the freight car. This compartment is much too fancy for me. Chloe, still gazing out the window, answered calmly, We have 2 long days of travel ahead. Besides, I will soon be spending much of my time alone. As the train rolled further across the land, snow began to fall outside. The snow is coming down, Gilles observed quietly. So it is, Chloe replied, still watching the view beyond the glass as the train rattled on. After days of travel, they finally arrived at the birthplace and ancestral castle of House Thys. At the entrance, a maid greeted them with a bow. Greetings, your ladyship. I am Eliza, the head maid and acting steward, she introduced herself. Chloe's eyes scanned the castle's vast structure. This castle is enormous, yet only one person has come to greet me. That can only mean I am not welcome here, she thought. Maintaining her composure, she replied politely, Thank you for the warm welcome. She tapped her cane gently against the ground before continuing. Would you prepare some food for my attendant to take on his return journey? He is weary from escorting me here. Very well, Eliza answered curtly. Gilles stood silently, his face carrying a look of sadness. Lady Chloe, he stuttered. I shall have a maidservant find something for your servant. You may follow me, Eliza said with an unfriendly look, ignoring Jill. Chloe turned to face him. Gilles, I am sorry I will not be able to see you off. Thank you. Have a safe journey back, she told him with a faint smile. This way, please, Eliza urged, drawing Chloe's attention back. Chloe turned and followed, walking with her cane as they entered the castle. Eliza led her straight to the lady of the house. Your Grace, Lady Chloe has arrived, she announced. Show her in, came the command. Chloe bowed politely as she entered. My name is Chloe. It is an honor to finally meet you. Thank you for arranging for the carriage to collect us from the station. It is truly appreciated. Look at me, Chloe, the lady said in a commanding tone. Chloe gently lifted her head, her eyes widening slightly in awe. You are quite a pretty one, the lady remarked. She was none other than Duke Damien's mother. Chloe thought inwardly, the Duke must take after his mother. You look just like the very first deer Damien caught as a boy, the lady added. Chloe smiled faintly. You are too kind. Tell me, are you secretly in possession of fantastic wealth? Or perhaps you know the skeletons hidden in the royal family's closet? The lady questioned, stepping closer. Not as far as I know, Your Grace, Chloe answered softly. Then that must mean Damien chose you as his bride for reasons other than practical ones, his mother said, brushing her hand lightly against Chloe's face. It is true you are beautiful. But hunting a deer with an injured leg for sport is rather unusual for my son. I could hardly believe it when he asked for the family jewels, saying he was going to propose. She waved her hand, her sharp eyes still fixed on Chloe. Perhaps it was curiosity. He does enjoy a good thrill every now and then. Chloe let out a slight laugh, but steadied her response. Well, I am sure His Grace would not make a decision about something as serious as marriage out of short-lived curiosity. I do not know his reasons for choosing me, but I intend to serve him as best as I can. Despite my shortcomings, I will do my utmost to ensure that House Thissy thrives. His mother tilted her head, impressed. You are brighter than I thought. I like you. With a pretty face like yours, my jewels will suit you nicely, and since you seem to have a good head on your shoulders, you will be able to help me manage the castle. I would have expected no less of my son. She then clasped her hands together, her voice softening with delight. There is nothing more important to Damien than family. Now that you are here, how about I tell you what Damien was like as a child? Hours later, after a long tour and endless conversations filled with praises for Damien, Chloe finally slumped onto her bed, exhausted. She spent hours boasting about him, Chloe thought, sighing. I would have guessed he had a strict upbringing, but clearly he was adored as a child. How exhausting! Her eyes drifted toward the Duke's portrait placed at her bedside. With a faint frown, she turned the frame face down. He even had a portrait of himself placed in his wife's bedchamber? She muttered softly before lying down. Soon after, sleep overcame her. The portrait of the Duke still silently facing her from the bedside table. One morning over tea, Damien's mother spoke to Chloe with a mild air of surprise. I was rather expecting to see you shut yourself in the study for 3 days when you have only just arrived here, she said, lifting her cup. I see you are similar to Damien in that regard. Once he starts focusing on something, he is unlikely to notice the sun rising. She exclaimed this lightly as Eliza stood quietly behind her. Then she looked at Chloe and asked, So, what was it you wished to discuss? Chloe, still holding her own teacup, responded calmly, Would you mind giving us a moment of privacy, Eliza? Heavens, Chloe, her mother-in-law said with a joking tone. Eliza has been in our service since Damien was born. She is practically part of the family. There is no conversation she cannot be privy to. Chloe's mind drifted to a letter she had received from the Duke. She remembered reading it. To my dear Duchess of House von Thies, how are you finding life at High Castle? I trust you are performing your duties as Duchess in a satisfactory manner. I hope you will not disappoint me. Missing you very much, Damien. The letter had felt less like an affectionate message and more like a written warning. My duties as a duchess, she thought to herself. Aloud, Chloe said, after reviewing the ledgers over the course of 3 days, I have discovered discrepancies in the castle's finances. It is clear that money is trickling out through a crack. Her words made Eliza flinch and shift uneasily. My dear, Lady Thissa said as she placed her teacup on the table, overseeing a castle of this size is no easy feat. Yes, and that is all the more reason to manage it as meticulously as possible, Chloe replied, glancing at Eliza, who was visibly tense. It is unclear from the records where the money is being spent, and the sum of the taxes levied from the people does not add up. In addition, there is a discrepancy between the number of wine bottles in the cellar and the amount recorded in the ledgers. This is something that has happened not just once or twice, but repeatedly. She paused before continuing. It seems these irregularities began appearing precisely around the time that Eliza took on the role of steward. At this, Eliza's face went pale. She trembled, clutching her skirt. Her nose sniffled as the room fell silent, and tears began to drip as she started to sob. Eliza, Lady Thissa sighed, holding her head with one hand, clearly disappointed. Please leave us for a moment. Yes, Your Grace, Eliza said, sniffing back her tears as she left the room, the door closing gently behind her. Do you not think it would have been wise to discuss such matters in private? Lady Thissa asked. My apologies, Your Grace, Chloe replied steadily. Still, I think it will be necessary to dismiss Eliza and the stable master, Robinson. Robinson? Now what? Lady Thissa asked sharply. Eliza would have had to use a wagon to smuggle inventory outside the castle. The volume of stolen goods was such that it would have been impossible for her to act alone, Chloe explained. Those two are loyal servants who have supported me through difficult times. Their dismissal is not something to be discussed lightly, Lady Thesis said coldly. That makes their dishonesty all the more unforgivable, Chloe responded. If Eliza had valued your appreciation for her, she could never have done such a thing behind your back. A crack like this will become bigger as time goes on. Lady Thys sat in silence, pretending not to hear. If you turn a blind eye to this, ma'am, their transgressions will only grow worse. It will bring damage to House Thys, Chloe continued, but was cut off. Chloe, why do you insist on making my life difficult by bringing up such things? Lady Thys asked scornfully. And why are you calling me ma'am as if we are strangers? You have married into the family. Her tone had turned angry. Then will you permit me to call you mother? Chloe asked, tense. That does not seem fitting either, Lady Thys scoffed. This is the end of our conversation. I shall discuss this matter with Damien when he gets back. Shall I have your meal brought to your room? Chloe asked softly. As I said, I have lost my appetite, Lady Thys replied. I understand if you do not want my company, but skipping meals is harmful to your health. Before Chloe could finish, her mother-in-law cut her off. Can't you remain silent instead of having an answer for everything I say? You really can be quite exasperating. She scoffed, rising from her chair and walking away abruptly, leaving Chloe alone at the table. Later, during dinner, Chloe sat by herself at the large dining table. A maid poured her a glass of water. Please call me if you need anything, the maid said quietly before stepping out and shutting the door behind her. Chloe picked up her cutlery in the silence. I suppose I've managed to make myself properly hated, haven't I? She thought. She could faintly hear the whisper of maids outside. I heard she wanted to fire Miss Eliza when she's hardly been here a week, one maid said to another. This is exactly why it's so important to be prudent when selecting a bride, the other replied scornfully. From a distance, Chloe heard everything but did not respond. She sat still, watching them. Everything has lost its taste. I wonder if Father is well. I hope Jill's made it back safely. Has Alice written again? When will the Duke return? When he does, will things at least be better than they are now? Many questions ran through her mind as she remembered Damien's words telling her to perform her duties as Duchess. Chloe shook her head in frustration, unable to eat. No, of course not. It's as if driving people into a corner is a custom of House Thissa, she thought, stabbing her steak angrily. I don't know who's worse, the mother or the son, she muttered softly, exhaling, unaware of someone approaching from behind, the sound of metal faint but close. You seem to be having a pleasant conversation, Duke Damien said suddenly, stunning her as she froze in surprise. It's unlike you to be talking to yourself, he added, placing his arm on her chair. I must have made you very lonely while I was gone, he said, catching her gaze. Your Grace, Chloe exclaimed as she stood up from her seat. Damien, my dear son, his mother cried out with excitement, rushing into the dining room with her maids trailing behind her. I must be dreaming. You should have sent word you were coming. She held him close, beaming with joy. I returned early because I missed you, Mother, Damien told her. You are too sweet, his mother said happily, as Chloe stood nearby, silently observing the reunion in confusion. The journey back must have drained you. Look at how thin your handsome face has become, his mother said as she placed her hand on his cheek. He took her hand and smiled faintly. On the contrary, I must have drunk all the spirits on offer in the first-class carriage, Damien replied lightly. Still, rushing over here has made me rather hungry. I think I shall have something to eat. He glanced toward Chloe, and his mother giggled joyfully at his words. Of course, I'll have Mrs. Dutton prepare you something at once, she said eagerly. No need, there is plenty already on the table, Damien replied, referring to Chloe's meal, which caused Chloe to flinch slightly. Just have them prepare an extra setting. The table was quickly arranged for their meal. So, Chloe, Damien began as they sat, did you find everything to your satisfaction while I was away? Of course, Chloe answered quietly, holding her cutlery without meeting his eyes. Is that so? He asked, pressing further. Yes, everyone has been so kind. They made my stay very pleasant, she told him. How wonderful to hear, Damien said before cutting into his steak. He picked up a piece and chewed, but almost immediately his face twisted with displeasure. He suddenly slammed his hand down on the table, rattling the dishes and spilling his wine. Damien, his mother stammered in shock. Damn it, Damien cursed, spitting out the food into a handkerchief. He dabbed his mouth, his expression dark. Summon the physician at once. Damien, whatever is the matter? Why call for the physician? His mother asked anxiously. As the physician of this family, he has failed to protect your health, Damien declared coldly. As a result, I intend to have him put to death at once. My dear, I am perfectly fine. What on earth are you saying? She protested. The fact that you have been eating such unpalatable food without a word of complaint suggests there is something gravely wrong with your sense of taste, he said, grasping her hand and leaning close. His mother grew uneasy under his piercing gaze. There is nothing wrong with me, Damien. The physician is blameless. Forget about punishing him, she said firmly, waving his hand away. Are you certain? He asked. His eyes narrowed. This steak is absurdly tough. The vegetables are dry and shriveled. The soup was clearly prepared days earlier. And the wine, unfit to be served on the tables of House This. Mother, are you telling me you were aware of this? His mother hesitated, but before she could answer, Damien's voice turned sharp. Very well, then. Bring me the chef, he ordered, gripping his knife tightly as his expression darkened. The chef and maids were brought in. Damien's eyes swept over them with cold fury. How did the leftovers meant for the poorhouse end up being served here? He demanded. The poorhouse? The maids whispered among themselves in horror. Yes, it seems those tasked with setting the table made a mistake, the head maid admitted nervously. The servants collapsed to the ground in fear, their foreheads pressed against the floor. We have committed a grave sin. Please spare us, Your Grace, they begged desperately. Do you expect to live after this insult to my family? Damien asked icily. Throw them in the dungeons and tear each one of them limb from limb. Your Grace, wait. Chloe's voice cut in, calm but firm. It was but one meal. Please forgive them this small transgression. My wife, Damien said, turning to her, this food was intended for the poorhouse. And it is still fit for human consumption, Chloe replied softly. I explicitly instructed you to fulfill your duties as Duchess. Did you fail to understand my words? He asked, his tone sharp, as the maids trembled under his gaze. To sit here consuming such scraps without protest is an insult to my name. You may be from a humble noble family, but this much should be common sense, Damien told her coldly. I apologize for my negligence, Chloe said, clutching at her skirt. However, as your wife and as the lady of this house, I implore you to restrain yourself and show them mercy. Her words gave the maids a flicker of hope as they lifted their heads slightly. Allow them the chance to serve me a proper dinner, one befitting House Thissy, Chloe added gently. That night, Chloe finally returned to her chambers. She prepared for bed, sinking into her mattress with exhaustion. By some stroke of luck, I managed to save the servants' lives, she thought, brushing her hand across the bedding. She remembered Damien's words from earlier that evening. I must relent if that is what you want. You truly are a generous woman. What a long day, Chloe sighed, lying down. I'm so relieved I didn't have to see their heads roll. I was already feeling sick to my stomach. Just then, there was a knock at her door. My lady, a maid called softly as she peeked in. His Grace wishes to see you in his chambers. What could he want at this hour? Chloe wondered. Please inform him that I shall come as soon as I am ready, she said, rising from her bed. As soon as you are ready? What preparations could you possibly need to make? The voice was not the maid's, but Damien's. He stepped into the room, his eyes fixed on her. There is no need for decorum or formal dress at this hour of night, he said calmly, as Chloe instinctively tried to cover herself. Do you not agree, my wife? Damien asked as he leaned closer, kneeling onto her bed. Chloe, feeling shy and still holding herself together, tells Duke Damien softly, I shall meet you in your chambers as soon as I am dressed, so please, give me a few moments. There is no need for such decorum. Just come, Duke Damien replies with a smirk, sitting on his bed with his hands folded. Chloe looks at him quietly before lowering her hand to take up her walking cane. Shall we go to my room, my wife? Duke Damien proposes politely. Inside the Duke's room, the couple sits facing each other across the fireplace in his parlor. The atmosphere is quiet, the hour late. It is rather late. Was there some urgent matter you needed my help with? Chloe asks calmly. What business do you suppose there could be between husband and wife at such an hour? Damien responds, his question making her tense. Could he possibly be referring to the deed we left unperformed on our wedding day? Chloe thinks, her heartbeat racing as she clutches at her clothes. She turns away from his gaze, her face flushing red. I can tell exactly what she is thinking, Damien thinks to himself with a smirk as he observes her expression. I intend to reward you for having faithfully carried out your duties as Duchess, he tells her. I do not believe I did anything of... Chloe begins, but he cuts her off. You got rid of Eliza and Robinson for me, he says. Are you saying you knew about their dishonesty? Chloe stammers. I love my mother, and I know how much she was attached to those two, so I turned a blind eye to their misdeeds, he explains with a shrug. Why are you making that face? Is it so shocking that I love my mother? He asks, delighted as he watches Chloe's expression change at the mention of his mother. Ahem. No, not particularly, Chloe exclaims shyly. You look appalled, he remarks. Though she may be temperamental and immature, she is the woman who gave birth to me, he continues, getting up from his seat. She will be spending time in our villa in the south for the time being, he says, walking away across the table. She is simply heartbroken by poor Ellie and Robbie's dismissal, you see. It will do her good to get a change of scenery and some fresh air. He happily brings a boxed gift for Chloe. And this should help you better adapt to life here, he says. Could it be? Is this man showing me kindness? Chloe wonders as Duke Damien pushes the gift toward her. Open it, he tells her. Rita, attending Chloe, raises the lid of the box and is amazed at what she sees. I thought I would give you something far more practical than that cane you seem to be in the habit of losing, Damien tells her as she sees the walking brace he has gotten for her. It is a brace, Chloe says softly. Once you get used to it, you will be able to walk comfortably without support. Try it on so I can see, he instructs. Chloe glances sadly at the brace. I thank you for the gift, but whether or not to use it is at the discretion of the recipient, she says, lowering the lid and covering the gift. I shall try it on some other time, she adds politely. Inside, Chloe is afraid. She does not know how to use it. She has long relied on her cane. I do not wish to be seen hobbling around and falling over. It's obvious that he intends to mock me, she thinks. At your discretion, you say. Then I suppose you think inviting your servant into your compartment for a tryst should be at your discretion too, Damien says suddenly, startling her. Did you have someone follow us? Chloe asks, startled. When you are a member of House Thissy, you hear all sorts of news whether you want to or not, he informs her. What is your reason for showing him generosity, far exceeding what a servant deserves, and bringing him to my estate? He asks, his expression angry. Jill is a faithful servant who has worked for our family since he was a child. Nothing more, Chloe answers firmly. Eliza nursed me instead of my mother when I was an infant, yet she betrayed our trust, Damien tells her. A brief silence emerges between them. Chloe looks away with a sigh. I ask you to cease insulting me, she says calmly. I am not insulting you, but giving you counsel. Your faithful servant has not left the Thissy train station. If people discover that he has remained here out of some lingering attachment to his mistress, what sorts of things do you suppose they will whisper behind your back? Damien asks harshly. Gilles hasn't gone back to the Verdier estate? Why? Chloe thinks, confused at his accusations. I do not believe you abandoned your duties as Duchess and brought shame upon me, Chloe von Thisse, Damien says, leaning toward her from behind and holding her hand, causing her to flinch slightly. So put the brace on at once, he says, leaning toward her ear. She fidgets for a moment before obeying his instruction. Ah! Chloe cries out, falling down on her first attempt to walk with the brace. What part of it do you find uncomfortable? Damien asks, kneeling close to her. As he tries to reach for her leg, Chloe abruptly holds his hand. Please, do not touch me, she tells him. Then answer me. I must know its flaws in order to correct them, he says. The entire device is uncomfortable because I do not need it. It only causes me pain, she blurts out. It shall have the opposite effect once you get used to it. That will take some time and effort, he tells her calmly. Chloe looks away, huffing quietly. Are you crying? He asks, stroking her face. Why should I? She replies, turning her face away from him. Yes, crying like a child is unbecoming of a duchess, he says, sliding her dress up and revealing her leg. Your Grace, you're truly a devil, Chloe says softly. But I have yet to show you just how much of a friend I can be, he tells her, leaning closer to her face. Thank you for watching this episode of our Manhwa recap. We hope you enjoyed diving into the world of this story with us. If you loved the content, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more amazing manhwa recaps. See you in the next episode.